Invaders, pirates, warriors. The history books taught us that Vikings were brutal predators who traveled by sea from Scandinavia to pillage and raid their way across Europe and beyond. Now, cutting-edge DNA sequencing of more than 400 Viking skeletons from archaeological sites scattered across Europe and Greenland will rewrite the history books.
Bioperturbation, the disturbance of soils by animals, is an important and often essential functional component of many ecosystems worldwide. It determines the spatio-temporal characteristics of soil patches and thereby contributes to the ecosystem's diversity and heterogeneity.
Peer checking is a very useful and productive way of developing your reviewing skills. When you read your friend's work, you are assuming the role of the reader and the teacher. If your friend's work is well written, then it will be fluent and easy to read, and you will have no problems understanding the overall content.
Since the Soviet Union successfully launched the first man-made satellite, Sputnik 1, in 1957, about 5,000 more satellites have been put into orbit around the Earth. About 2,000 of these are active, and although the rest are now dysfunctional, they remain in orbit, together with parts from all the rockets that carried them there. These remnants are often referred to as space junk, space trash, or orbital debris. A series of camel sculptures, carved into rock faces in Saudi Arabia, are likely to be the oldest large-scale animal reliefs in the world, a study says. When the carvings were first discovered in 2018, researchers estimated they were created about 2,000 years ago. This was based on their similarity to reliefs at Jordan's famous ancient city of Petra.
Many families are fleeing their native countries due to sectarian repression and political uprisings. Consequently, thousands of people have been stranded in foreign lands for months. Other families have gone missing in the sea, marooned in small boats, as the neighboring foreign countries refuse to take them in.
Do something you're very passionate about and don't try to chase what is kind of the hot passion of the day. People say you have to have a lot of passion for what you're doing, and it's totally true, and the reason is because it's so hard that if you don't, any rational person would give up.
Housing fulfills the basic needs that people have for security, privacy, and shelter. While the adequacy of housing is an important component of individual well-being, housing also has great impact on the nation's economy, with its influence on investment levels, interest rates, building activity, and employment. A boy in ancient Athens was socially located by his family identity, and Plato often refers to his characters in terms of their paternal and fraternal relationships. Socrates was not a family man, and saw himself as the son of his mother, who was apparently a midwife.
Many non-Japanese know a thing or two about traditional tea ceremony, its history, intricacies and religious origins. However, few people outside Japan have a deep understanding about the esoteric meaning of the practice. Indeed, even in Japan the secret meaning of tea ceremony is little understood except by those who have devoted their lives to the discipline. To reduce pollution, it is essential that the town center becomes a car-free zone. A ring road should be built so that cars are diverted away from the town center. The main shopping streets could be converted into a pedestrianized area. If trees and flowers are planted, the town center will be transformed into a quiet and green space where residents can enjoy shopping and walking in a healthy environment.
Located at the heart of two world-famous cities, Liverpool and London, Liverpool's excellence in teaching, learning and research, first-class facilities, and outstanding support places the university in the top 1% of universities worldwide. The University of Liverpool will provide you with an inspiring student experience in a diverse international community.
Smoke from Australia's Black Summer bushfires of 2019-2020, which burned through 18 million hectares of land, produced a phytoplankton bloom larger than the entire country of Australia located in the Southern Ocean.
The Bermuda Triangle is a mythical section of the Atlantic Ocean roughly bounded by Miami, Bermuda, and Puerto Rico, where dozens of ships and airplanes have disappeared. Unexplained circumstances surround some of these accidents, including one in which the pilots of a squadron of U.S. Navy bombers became disoriented while flying over the area. The planes were never found. Line engraving on metal, which, to a great extent, was a development of the goldsmith's craft of ornamenting armor and precious metals, did not emerge as a printmaking technique until well into the 15th century. Copper, the metal mainly used for engraving, was expensive, and engraving itself was laborious and took a long time.
Some of the pain patients may become hooked. Or their meds may find their way to friends or relatives who take them recreationally. Or a prescription opioid user may transition to heroin. Heroin is just another opioid drug, so the brain doesn't distinguish whether it comes from a pharmacy or from a street drug dealer.
Internet interruptions caused by extreme weather events sap billions of dollars annually from the global economy and can interfere with the delivery of essential data and services by governments, utilities, and first responders. A Boston-based startup is trying to address that problem by applying climate resilience and adaptation principles to the Internet, which experts say is vulnerable to climate change. Human beings most certainly contribute to climate change by adding greenhouse gases to the atmosphere, but this is only part of the equation. Earth's climate can change over time not only because of changes in the atmosphere but also because of interactions between the atmosphere and various geologic, chemical, biological, and geographic factors.
Since 2003, borrowing for education advanced faster, in percentage terms, than all other types of consumer debt that includes mortgages, auto loans, and credit cards, data from the Federal Reserve Bank of New York show. As of the fourth quarter, student loans represented 10.5% of a record $13.1 trillion in household debt, up from 3.3% at the start of 2003.
A meteorite that fell on Earth more than a century ago may contain some of the first concrete evidence for a cosmic mashup in the early solar system. Following the birth of our Sunday, April 5 billion years ago, it is thought that Jupiter's formation caused two reservoirs of asteroids to gather in the solar system, one inside the giant planet's orbit and one outside.
Pronunciation is the way in which a word or a language is spoken. This may refer to generally agreed upon sequences of sounds used in speaking a given word or language in a specific dialect, or simply the way a particular individual speaks a word or language.
Just as the world's fifth largest economy emerges from the COVID-19 pandemic, the post-Brexit shortage of truck drivers, and a spike in European natural gas prices has left the UK grappling with the grim prospect of a potential food supply crunch and soaring energy bills. In a landmark report published on Monday, the International Financial Institution called on states to reduce global emissions and bridge the development gap to avoid the effects of slow-onset climate change such as water scarcity, decreasing crop productivity, and rising sea levels.
There are many reasons why water tastes stale when it is kept for a long time. Microorganisms play a big role in this phenomenon. When they grow, they release chemicals into the water from their metabolic activity. This evaporates over time, so the absence of it from water left out for a long period brings about a change in taste.
Tests of a drug known to stimulate brain activity have shown early success in reducing symptoms of sluggish cognitive tempo in 38 men and women with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. It also significantly corrected deficits in executive brain function, with fewer episodes of procrastination, improvements in keeping things in mind, and strengthened prioritization skills. Many employers outside of the military cannot comprehend the myriad of acronyms soldiers may initially struggle to stop using in their daily work. Some veterans may also struggle to explain how their experience can be applied in a non-military environment. One potential solution comes in an unlikely form: virtual reality.
Optogenetics is a research tool in neuroscience that uses light to alter the activity of genetically engineered light-sensitive nerve cells to better understand the function and behavior of clusters of neurons in animals. Now, a team led by researchers from the Korea Advanced Institute of Science and Technology has developed an implantable optogenetic light-emitting device that can be wirelessly recharged.
As the Delta variant of coronavirus sweeps the US, businesses, universities, and cities such as New York and San Francisco have introduced vaccine mandates to boost uptake of jabs. But vaccine hesitancy remains high, and a cottage industry for bogus inoculation cards has emerged to help people get around the rules. Permafrost is ground that is frozen year-round. In the Arctic, ice-rich permafrost soils can be up to 260 feet thick. Due to human-caused warming of the atmosphere from greenhouse gas emissions, a steady thawing of the permafrost is currently taking place, where the upper layer of seasonally thawed soil is gradually getting thicker and reaching deeper into the ground. Whether you're climbing your way up the corporate ladder or overwhelmed with the organizational tasks of home and kids, a luxurious vacation to an exotic paradise may seem like an impossible dream. You can only fantasize about an outdoor massage among fragrant island flowers or a nap after enjoying a brunch ripe with fruits fresh from the vine.
Artificial intelligence has been one of the most controversial domains of inquiry in computer science since it was first proposed in the 1950s. Defined as the part of computer science concerned with designing systems that exhibit the characteristics associated with human intelligence, understanding language, learning, reasoning, solving problems. When a major disaster strikes, the first people on the scene are often local organizations, residents, and volunteers. They are often faced with the retrieval and immediate management of dead bodies before forensic experts can arrive.
Conscientiousness is a fundamental personality trait. A conscientious person is good at self-regulation and impulse control. This trait influences whether you will set and keep long-range goals, deliberate over choices, behave cautiously or impulsively, and take obligations to others seriously.
Calcium plays an extremely important role in producing plant tissues, and it enables plants to grow better. Calcium is responsible for holding together the cell walls of plants. It is also crucial in activating certain enzymes and to send signals that coordinate certain cellular activities. Calcium also increases resistance to outside attack and increases the feed value of forage crops to livestock.
Blue whales are the largest living mammals. Though reports of maximum length and weight vary from one account to another, Antarctic blue whales are known to have reached lengths to 100 feet and weights of over 150 tons before stocks were severely depleted by whaling operations. North Atlantic blue whales may be expected to reach lengths of 80 to 85 feet.
In attempts to understand the very nature of our reality, physicists sure have some mind-bending theories. Like, what if information is a tangible and fundamental aspect of physical reality itself, alongside matter and energy? Or alternatively, what if information is the fifth state of matter?
Tidal energy, also known as tidal power, is a renewable source of energy and a form of hydropower used to generate electricity from the energy of the tides. Though not currently widely utilized, due to high costs and limited availability, it can be called the energy resource of the future given the current rate of depletion of energy resources. Most countries are affected by labor migration. In many rural places, the traditional extended family has been undermined by the need for family members to migrate to towns as an economic necessity. Migration, therefore, presents a major challenge everywhere to social and economic policy.
With a population of only just over 30 million living in the world's second largest country, Canada is justly renowned for vast tracts of wilderness untroubled by pollution either from industry or from intensive farming methods. A major conservation issue is the battle to stop the logging of virgin forest in northern Ontario and on the west coast.
The terms voice and text are multifaceted. Both have a wide range of possible meanings in everyday speech and academic usage. You may encounter the two words used in a variety of ways, in connection with different subjects, and they won't always mean exactly the same thing.
Nell says that, in order to seek protection from their furry foes, birds actually prefer to build their nests in plots of swamp with a resident alligator. In fact, in one study a graduate student planted fake alligators. And the birds seem to prefer to build nests close to them. Where there's a water source, there are alligators, so it's sort of this mode of protection around these colonies.
Over time, a split would have appeared in wolf populations, he says, those wolves that feared humans, and those that didn't. So this would have facilitated, I think, the domestication process. At which point humans deliberately took wolves as pets. But that domestication process, France says, may have happened more than once, first in the West, in Europe. And again in the Far East, in Asia. A study found that the research funded by the soft drinks industry had different results from research funded by other sources and went on to suggest that they may have been biased by the research itself. The whole point of the scientific methods is to ensure the research results are not influenced by the source of funding.
We understand the importance of supporting and restoring biodiversity, and we are teaming up with the world's leading molecular biologists, technologists, conservation biologists, conservation organizations, ethicists, and thought leaders to call for intended consequences to help us safely use all of the available tools that can provide the advantage we need to turn the tide on species loss.
Prolonged exposure to loud noise alters how the brain processes speech, potentially increasing the difficulty in distinguishing speech sounds, according to neuroscientists. Exposure to intensely loud sounds leads to permanent damage of the hair cells, which act as sound receivers in the ear. Once damaged, the hair cells do not grow back, leading to noise-induced hearing loss.
History is selective. What history books tell us about the past is not everything that happened, but what historians have selected. They cannot put in everything, choices have to be made. Choices must similarly be made about which aspects of the past should be formally taught to the next generation in the shape of school history lessons.
An economic depression is a period of sustained, long-term downturn in economic activity in one or more economies. It is more severe than a recession, which is a slowdown in economic activity over the course of a normal business cycle. Economic depressions are characterized by their length and by abnormally large increases in unemployment rate.
The speaker reminisces about his views of the English Revolution when he was a student and how it seemed quite clear which side he was on: the aristocrats, not the Puritans. Later he realized there was more to it than that, and there were several ways of interpreting the revolution: as a struggle between the king and parliament, as a class war, or as an unpredictable situation without clear sides.
Seismology is the scientific study of earthquakes and the propagation of elastic waves through the Earth or through other planet-like bodies. The field also includes studies of earthquake environmental effects, such as tsunamis, as well as diverse seismic sources such as volcanic, tectonic, glacial, fluvial, oceanic, atmospheric, and artificial processes such as explosions. A related field that uses geology to infer information regarding past earthquakes is paleoseismology.
As a child, you might dream one day of becoming an astronaut and, the next day, of becoming a ballet dancer. The possibilities are endless. Eventually, this wealth of choice is whittled down by external circumstances and internal interests. Similarly, precursor cells in early embryos make a series of stepwise decisions governed by external forces and internal factors to generate the diverse array of cell types present in adult organisms. Reserve requirements are the proportions of the deposits that banks must keep on hand and are not allowed to lend out. For example, if the reserve requirement is 10% and you deposit $100 in a bank, the bank can lend $90 of that $100 to someone else. But it is not allowed to lend the remaining $10. Finally, the experimenters examined real insects. To see if leg adhesion might also play a role in the walking coordination of real flies, they put polymer drops on the flies' legs to cover their claws and adhesive pads, as if the flies were wearing boots, and watched what happened. The flies quickly began to use bipod-like leg coordination similar to the one discovered in the simulation. Much of today's business is conducted across international borders, and while the majority of the global business community might share the use of English as a common language, the nuances and expectations of business communication might differ greatly from culture to culture. Another virtue that both propagate is that the present is meant to be enjoyed to the fullest. It is no use fretting about the past, for it cannot be undone or overturned, and no use pondering too much about the future, for it remains unseen. The day being thought about may never dawn on you. The ultimate service, however, remains the one done for your fellow men.
Yet this landscape, which appeared so alien and confronting to the white settlers and explorers, had been home for thousands of years to indigenous Australians for whom the plains, ranges, and deserts were a sustaining, spiritual, and integral part of their existence.
From a children's point of view, what is the purpose of TV advertising? Is advertising on TV done to give actors the opportunity to take a rest or practice their lines? Or is it done to make people buy things? Furthermore, is the main difference between programs and commercials that commercials are for real, whereas programs are not, or that programs are for kids and commercials for adults? Having the same dream again and again is a well-known phenomenon. Nearly 2/3 of the population report having recurring dreams. Being chased, finding yourself naked in a public place or in the middle of a natural disaster, losing your teeth or forgetting to go to class for an entire semester are typical recurring scenarios in these dreams. Yet it is precisely in observing the intertwinings of success and failure that chasing the flame makes its greatest mark. With piercing insight and relentless logic, it reveals the pitfalls of international politics and details an intricate struggle between individual and institution. It haunts us with the poignant truth that even a great man can do only so much to reinvent the world.
A ubiquitous neurotransmitter that carries signals between brain cells, dopamine, among its many functions, is involved in multiple aspects of cognitive processing. The chemical messenger has been extensively studied from the perspective of external cues, or deterministic signals.
As introverts are thinking, they reach back into long-term memory to locate information. An introvert will often compare old and new experiences when making a decision, which slows the processing down but leads to carefully thought-out decisions. This means that introverts have an active dialogue with themselves and usually walk around with many thoughts in their minds.